Jess here with Cool Things in Nature, and I'm in Wiscasset, Maine, along the southern coast, and I'm at the Chewonki Foundation. Now the Chewonki Foundation is an environmental education foundation. We teach people about the environment. Now usually for Cool Things in Nature, we find the cool things in nature out in nature, and then we show them to you guys. But this time the cool things in nature have come to us. Chewonki is home to a large number of animals, wild animals, but they live here and we take care of them. And that's because the animals have been injured or they've been raised as pets. So they are non-releasable and they can't go back into the wild because they can't care for themselves. So Chewonki has about 6 owls, and me and my coworker Robin, we're going to introduce you to some of them right now. So these owls here are the eastern screech owls, and this one actually got his feet caught in a fence and he couldn't get out. Someone had to take him out. So that's why he's not really perching on my hand. He's unable to grasp onto things, so he wouldn't be able to catch his food in the wild, and that's why he's non-releasable, and we take care of him here at Chewonki.
And this owl was found on the side of a road, probably hit by a car. They discovered he has brain damage, and he also has issues with his eyesight and hearing, so he isn't really able to fend for himself in the wild either. And you can see, if you can compare these two eastern screech owls, that this one is a gray phase and this one is a red phase. That even though they could be found in the same nest, they have these distinct color variations so that they can camouflage with different forest types. So he'd be better off with an area with a lot of red bark, and he'd be better off in an area like this one where there's a lot of gray bark to blend into.
And if you look at the top of their head, they have these little ear tufts, and those aren't actually the ears of the owl, but they're just made up of feathers, and those are used to communicate their emotions. If they're standing straight up, they're very alert and aware of what's going on, and as they calm down and relax, they go down a little bit more. But those, like I said, are not actually their ears. Their ears are on the side of their head, and they have what looks like a mask around their face. It's called their facial disc, and that's used to actually funnel the sound into their ears. Now owls are really cool because they have lopsided ears. One is way up here, and on the other side it's down here, and that's so they can hear things beneath them and above them, and they know exactly where it's at depending on what ear they hear it in first. So they're really good at pinpointing exactly where a mouse or a small mammal might be that they plan on eating. So these are pretty cool, and our next owl we're going to show you is actually the most common owl found in Maine.
Alright, so this is a barred owl. This guy came here because he broke his wing and it healed improperly, so he can't actually extend it all the way, so he's not able to fly. And they're called barred owls because they have this barred pattern on their feathers that you can see here.
And with this one, she was actually shot over 14 years ago, and so she was taken into a vet, and the vet decided to amputate her right wing, so she no longer has that wing. And nowadays they don't do that because they've realized it really helps the birds to balance. So what's really cool about these guys is if you look at their eyes, they're really dark. And they're the only owl in Maine that you're going to find those dark eyes. There's actually only 4 in North America that have those dark eyes and light color beak. It's kind of opposite from other owls we'll be looking at. And if you see her, you can see her down feathers here. She looks kind of fluffy. Those are usually underneath, and they're used for insulation. And she has the contour feathers and the flight feathers on top to for protection and to waterproof her. And her feathers are actually so thick that, touch right here, I'm touching her skull right there, and it's eating up like half of my finger, so that's how thick her feathers are. And if you watch, if they blink, they have a third eyelid. They have the eyelid that comes down when they blink, they have one that comes up when they sleep, and one that goes sideways across their eye, and that's actually see-through, and it's called a nictitating membrane. And they're kind of like goggles when they're flying through the trees. It's to help protect them so they don't get sticks or anything else hitting their eye. So that's really cool.
Another cool thing about owls is that they can turn their heads most of the way around. Not all the way around like some people believe, but about 3/4 of the way, or 270 degrees. And that's for two reasons. First of all, the reason they have to be able to do that is because, unlike you and I, they can't move their eyes back and forth by themselves, so they can't look up and down and around because their eyes are so huge. There's no muscles left in their little skull space there's no room to have those muscles to move their eyes around. So instead, they have twice as many neck vertebrae, so neck bones, as you and I do. So every mammal, not bird, but every mammal has 7 neck vertebrae, even giraffe. But these guys have 14, so that gives them a super long neck, so they have the ability to turn their head really far.
The next owl we're going to bring out is the largest resident owl in Maine, so get ready for that.
Okay, so this is a great horned owl. This is the biggest resident owl we have in Maine. There is one larger that only comes and visits. They're found all over the United States, though. He is here because he flew into power lines, or so they think, and he broke all these 3 bones in his wing. So where they are in my arm is where they would be in his wing, in his right wing.
Now if you notice, his throat was kind of puffing out a little bit. That's something called gular fluttering, and what he's doing is he's basically trying to cool off, or he's panting like a dog would. So he might be a little warm out today, so he's just trying to cool off. Now owls have some amazing adaptations or equipment for survival that help them to be great hunters at night because they are nocturnal, and one of those things are their feet. Now if you look at his talons or his claws, they're really large, and they're actually made out of bone and then covered in a protein called keratin, which is the same thing that makes our fingernails and our hair. So it's like a giant fingernail for him. And they have 4 toes, and sometimes they have special feet. They're called zygodactyl, and so he can have 2 in the front and 2 in the back in order to perch onto something. Or his 3rd toe he can actually bring around to the front, so he has 3 in front and 1 on back, so that's pretty neat. And you see he gets the name Great Horned because of the large ear tufts on his head, like we talked about with the screech owls. They're for emotional communication pretty much, and they're pretty big on him, but they're just feathers. Now another neat thing is their feathers and the sides of them. The edge of their feathers are fringed, so that way they can fly silently at night. Unlike a bird, like a bald eagle, which hunt during the day, they don't need to be silent, so their feathers, they're completely straight along the edge, but they have the frayed feathers to help them be nice and quiet.
And another thing that helps them hunt at night is these giant eyes. If you look at their eyes, it takes up 2/3 of their skull, just the space of their eyeball. So that would be like if you and I had grapefruits for eyes. That's how big they would be. And the thing that's great about them is it helps them hunt with really, really low light. So if it were to be completely dark out, and he's hungry and ready to hunt, he would only need the light of a single birthday candle to hunt by, if there were birthday candles in the forest. But that's all the light he would need with those giant eyes.
And if you watched a previous Ecosode where we talked about owl pellets, they do swallow their prey whole. Then whatever they can't digest, such as fur, bones, or feathers if they eat another bird, that all gets separated and it comes out in one big pellet that they regurgitate up. So look back at that Ecosode for more information about the pellets. But owls, they are really cool things in nature.